my name is Bob Zablocki. I was in the U.S. Navy, and I was in the Navy from '63 to '66. Vietnam was heating up, and I figured I was going to be drafted. I like to say there was some good, big, esoteric reason why I did it, but the Navy attracted me, and Vietnam was heating up, and I didn't want to be, I wanted to be an officer, so that's what I did.
If I was to go back in time and speak to one of your high school friends, what would they tell me you were like?
I was a funny person.
You were a jokester?
Well, not a jokester, but I was very, very humorous, yeah. I wasn't a jerk, but I was, yeah. And if you went to college at Duquesne, they had a very, very high opinion of me. And same thing there, I was very humorous.
What was your family like? Was your family military?
No, my family, my father was a steel worker, and my mother worked at D.L. Clark Candy Company. And we were very, very poor when we first started out. We lived in a tenement building overlooking the city of Pittsburgh over on the north side. And I went to St. Pete's grade school, and Dan Rooney, the owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers, was my coach in 8th grade football. So I was not, I was nothing outstanding or anything. And I just went into the Navy because I felt it was my duty. Because where I come from, you know, you do your bit, you do your job. And so, you know, that's the atmosphere I grew up in. And so that was it. So I went in. And then when I was in officer candidate school, I was looking around. I didn't want to be just a regular officer. So when the time came to volunteer for either submarines or airplanes or deep sea diving, I always wanted to be a diver. So these guys, I'll tell you a little incident, everybody came in with films and pictures and said to come here and do this. And then the two guys came in from bomb disposal. I had no movies, no slides, no nothing. And a guy walks up to the microphone. He says, well, listen, you know, we take bombs apart and it's extremely dangerous. And there's only a few people who want to do this. So out there in the audience, there's maybe one or two of you who would want to do this. And my heart went thump, 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 thump. I'm not kidding you. I could feel my heart, okay? And I went over and volunteered. And there was only two of us. Aubrey Davis and myself volunteered for bomb disposal, and he went on later on, got switched over to SEALs and became the commanding officer of Unit 1, and then Unit 2, and then the school itself. When I went to diving school at Key West, I broke my eardrums for the first time. And then I rolled back to the next class, and I went to bomb school. So we had 88 people who started in that class, and we ended up with 13. My mother had a 6th grade education. My father only went to school for 3 grades. And they kept on, after my brother and I had one brother, go to college, go to college, go to college, because that was our way to, I mean, they understood that. They weren't highly educated, they were smart. And they were very nice to us, and so we did. You know, we studied like crazy. There were several colleges I wanted to get into, but I didn't have the money. We were too poor. So I could stay at home, go to Duquesne, and work my way through college. And every year I had 7 different jobs every year. 7 different jobs, same recurring, and they last 2 weeks, 4 weeks, or a month, or something like that. And that's how I paid my tuition in that. When you go to OCS, you're an E2 at the beginning, and then you get an honorable discharge and become a officer. And I think, looking back, I think there was a good side and a bad side. I did terrific work. I felt that I had the best team on the East Coast, but also I had been court-martialed. Back then, when you get court-martialed and you're a young ensign and you get court-martialed, that kind of, the older guys you know, the commanders and the admirals, they think that you had spunk, you know. And so that's it. I went to diving school. It was very, very difficult. Shorty Rogers was our class proctor, and he ended up with on Sea Lab 2 with Scott Carpenter. And when I was at Key West, they had a boat come in. It was a sea diver. It was about 100 feet long. And little did we know, but they came in to get our gas because we had the purest gas. And Lindbergh's son and or grandson, and Edwin Link, the guy who invented the Link trainer, they were partners in this thing, and they went over to the Bahamas, and they stayed down on the Habitat. There was the first saturated dive. They proved that diving, you know, they could do that. So they could not get gas pure enough, so they had to get gas from us. It was 99.99949s out. And I went to Indian Head, Maryland for bomb disposal school.
Okay.
And then from there I went to the, I had the original orders to the Saratoga. And then they changed it to the Forrestal. And then I met the ship over in Rhodes, Greece. And I never saw anything so big. I mean, it was really big. I mean, you were standing on shore, but it was 4 or 5 miles away. When I got bigger and bigger, my head would go like this. It was really, really big. So that was it. I took over the team, and we started on our adventures. And the one thing I did was I told the CEO that the aircraft carrier is part of generally a fast carrier task group. I don't know if they changed it now or not. And so you have, you know, 4 supply ships. You got X number of destroyer guided missiles out in front of you. You usually have a frigate or a cruiser with you alongside. Then you have a picket fence of destroyers at that time. And so it mounted up to usually like 15, 20 ships. And so the first thing I did so that my men would get practice was I put out a memo to everybody that all the ships that, you know, we were available for diving services. And within one day, 24 hours, every one of them said they needed help of some sort, you know. The big thing is engineers. You know, the shaft's going around and wow, 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 like this here, right? And they're listening, all of a sudden they hear something, they say, oh, you know, where's it at? So it's on the outside of the ship, you know. And we did a lot of recovery work, we did a lot of straight diving work, and we did flight deck. It was very important. Ours was a ship that John McCain had, he was the beginning of the fire. And I had left the ship already, and I was a civilian. And when the Forrestal exploded, they had the films, and 2 officers from the Pentagon called me up, and I met them at the Washington Navy Yard, which is where I was teaching weapon systems at that time. And they asked me what did I think and everything, and I looked at the film, and I remember how we operated on the flight deck, and I could see where the problem was, and I told them, but they never published it. So, so they just said it was an act of God instead of, you know, malfeasance of some sort. So, the best day was, I think, when I got commissioned. I couldn't believe that they were actually going to make a poor Polish kid from the lower north side of Pittsburgh an officer. And it was outside at Newport, and it was drizzling, and the Assistant Secretary of the Navy was there, and we all threw our hats up in the air, and we were jumping around, hugging each other. And that was that, and maybe the first bomb I ever took apart was up on the flight deck. After I took it apart, I had collapsed on the deck, shaking. I had urinated all over myself. I mean, at the time I was doing it, we have bomb disposal people have a ability to be myopic. And what I mean is we concentrate on exactly what we're doing, regardless of what the world is doing. Your house could be burning down, your wife could be leaving you, all that other stuff. We could take that out of our mind. And so, I fell on the deck, and they picked me up and took me to my stateroom, and I was in the fetal position, shaking for 2 hours. And then all of a sudden I stopped. Took off my clothes, took a shower, put fresh clothes on, and went back up to the flight deck because that was my job. It was, I guess it was a way to divorce ourselves from fear. It was very exciting every day. And I had two very good first-class petty officers who were, were divers and bomb disposal. And, well, I'll tell you a story. The B-52 who was going on patrol was going to refuel over Spain, and they had an accident and it broke up and came. They had 4 20-megaton weapons aboard. Now, our biggest job was to protect the weapons, the big stuff, atomic weapons. So anyway, it broke up. We didn't know this though. So aboard the Forrestal, I get a call at, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. It said broken arrow, which is the code word now. At that time, that was a secret code word, but now everybody uses it. Broken arrow, we have an incident. Take command of the USS Forrestal. Oh, holy, holy crap. So anyway, I was an officer of the deck. There was only 4 of us on the ship. At that time, I was the officer of the deck, so the captain and I knew each other. So I went up to the bridge, and he was in his pajamas. I remember I said to the people in calm, I said, do you have a message for the captain too? They said yes. The captain was, the message to the captain from 6th Fleet was, take your direction from Lieutenant J.G. Zablocki. So I run up to the bridge and I said, he said, what it's going on here? My ship. I says, Captain, this is no attempt to usurp your authority. I said, something bad has happened. He says, what is it? And I said, I can't tell you because you don't ever need to know. So what happened was that, I needed 6 Marines heavily armed. We need rebreathers because now you don't know what's going to happen. See, if something burns or breaks apart and you got the plutonium out there, you just can't go pick it up. You got to have, and it's radiating, so you should have impermeable suits with breathers in it. And so anyway, my other 2 men went down to our locker, and we had 3 chests like this, and they had nuclear on it, written on it, with big printing. Anyway, they brought them up and laid them on the deck of the aircraft carrier, and we had 2 Willie Fudds, which are prop planes, and we had 2 helicopters that were warming up for us. See, we didn't know, so you get a command and you don't know what's going on, see? So I put my working uniform on and went back up to the bridge, and the various commanders, the operations and the navigator, and that they were there, and they said, to me, what's going on? And then they brought these chests up, and the captain looked down, and he says, holy, because it says nuclear. So now the cat's a little bit out of the bag as something bad with the bombs has happened. So about 3 hours later, they just sent another message that said, stand down. So two days later, we found out that the 4 bombs had come down, 2 on a tomato thing, and 1 in 30 feet of water, which now, when a nuclear weapon is signed out by the Air Force, 4 of them, they're responsible for it. But if it goes in the water, it's the Navy's responsibility. So one went into 30 feet of water, and the other one went over next to the abyss, going down. And so what happened was at Rio de Spain, we had a 5-man team, so they moved in there right away, and then they needed help, so they called back to Charleston, South Carolina, and we kind of emptied out our people there. Lots of officers and enlisted men flew over right away to, to scan the whole area there to try to find this missing weapon. And they finally found it. It had gone over the abyss, and it was too deep for them. So they had to go back, send back to the United States, to Arlington, for Alvin, A-L-V-I-N, Alvin. It was the first remote grabber, and they flew it in, and he went down and he grabbed it by the parachute. So all of these weapons have, the bad stuff, and then they have usually have a parachute pack on the back of it, so when it comes out of the plane or a chute or whatever it is, it comes down, and the little radars in their sense, what's going up and down where the earth is, so they're set so that they want a maximum. It's like Hiroshima. When that bomb was dropped, the radars were set for like 1,800 feet or something like that. So anyway, that was one incident. I had another incident where the bomb storage, atomic bomb storage, was right next to a pumping station with a big, gasoline pumping station up to the flight deck. And it blew out, it blew its thing out, and it flooded that compartment. And 2 men went in there to try to fix it, and they died. They got asphyxiated. So we had to go to general quarters, and I went down to the weapons. I'm sitting on top of a 1.2 megaton weapon. They wwere lined up with the fire hose. There was nothing I could do. The captain said, "Call the Polish kid, send him down there." There was nothing I could do. But anyway, the interesting part was I was thinking, geez, I'm mom and dad. So I was writing a letter to my mother, and Dad says, "Dear Mom and Dad, I'm sorry that I didn't tell you I loved you enough." Then it occurred to me, if anything happened, they would never have gotten the note anyway, because there wouldn't be nothing left of me. I think it's a matter of doing your duty and being good to yourself, trying to maximize your potential. And the military does a terrific job of that. You take a smart aleck kid and you put him in the Marine Corps, 16 weeks later, he's a pretty nice guy. And so Memorial Day, Veterans Day was terrific, except I didn't go there because that sets me off. And I've been through all kind of therapy since I was a civilian. Anyway, so I have my PTSD in tow. I have it, and I have attacks a couple times a week. And
but do you think it's important for the next generation to come to places like this place?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. They have no idea the sacrifices we made. And it's like being poor. If you grow up poor, you don't know you're poor. You don't know any better. That's the way your life is. And the way we grew up is we felt we had a duty. And I'm not so sure that nowadays kids think that way, or young people think that way. I mean, that's the end. And this is, somebody has got to do what you're doing, because somebody's got to, record everything. Just like part of our training was to, the British were very good during the Blitz to record everything. And so what would happen is that they were structured different. They were structured like our Army. They had an officer and 8 or 9 enlisted men, and they did all the grunt work. and the officer would go in and take the German bomb apart. Well, the Germans went and booby-trapped the fuses. So he would go in, and boom, he was blown up, but they had pictures of this, see? So then they'd say, oh, this is what was happening, so now we'll diffuse it a different way. They would put magnets on the fuses and stop them, if they were ticking off. They even used liquid nitrogen to fuse freeze the fuses in place. They used acid to burn a hole in it. And we had most of the teams. Well, I was on the aircraft carrier, so I didn't need one. But we had a truck, and it pulled a acid Jenny and a steam Jenny. So if a bomb was laying there, and it was ticking off, we didn't want to get blown up. So we put a hole in the ground with a nozzle on it that sprayed nitric and sulfuric acid combined onto the side of the bomb. Before that, we had dug a hole right next to the bomb where we were going to do this. So we'd run back to an observation and look at the brown smoke coming off because the acid was eating the iron and steel. And was almost, and then when the smoke stopped, that meant that they were, the area. So you go back and it'd be a keyhole like this here, and it would come down like this. And so the high explosive was exposed. So we'd bring up the steam Jenny, do the same thing and blow steam in there. And the high explosive would melt and go down into the hole we dug. Very clever ideas. And then you just put a chain on the bomb and the fuse would go pop. That's all you heard was a pop. So that was a very clever thing. The Brits, we owned a lot to the Brits. When I got court-martialed, that was one of the things they said, well, what the hell are we going to do with them? We can't demote them. We need bomb disposal officers. There was only a certain number of us. Would I do it over again? Absolutely. Was it exciting? Yes. Was it dangerous? Yes. Was it? Did I have fun? Yeah, I did. I was all over the Riviera, Jacques Cousteau, all kind of working on ships underwater, our own aircraft carrier. Every time we came into port, we went down and checked the props and the rudders, and then we swam forward, checked the anchor. And
if you had to do it all over again, would you, and why?
Oh yeah. Would I do it? Oh yes, I would very much. I gained a very sense of pride in what I did, and they needed us.